Everybody.
Good evening.
It's nice to be here. I did get to know your minister a little bit, and I have found in the short time we're together that he's an astute, studious man who loves books and to read and things like that, and probably prides himself on his intellectual capacity. So I was kind of shocked this week to hear that his library had burned, and both of his books were destroyed. And one he didn't even have a chance to color. It's nice to be here with you this evening. When they saw the bulletin, he said to come up after the Song of Mary. I was waiting for the music to start. You know, we do things a little bit differently. But anyways, I'm glad to be with you. When I was a boy, around 10 years old, my dad and I, I'm from Botwood, my dad and I would rabbit catch. And so we get the rabbits, and we had this old Jeep, and we go around door to door. Actually, I would go door to door and knock on the door and ask people if they'd like to buy a rabbit. So I go to this lady's door one day, and I knock on her door, and she opens the door, and I hold up my rabbit, and I said, would you like to buy some rabbits, ma'am? And she looked at me, and she looked at the rabbits, and she said, I don't know. She said, how old are they? How am I supposed to know how old they are? I said, I don't know, man. A couple of years, I suppose. She said, I don't think I'll take any chances. So she slammed the door in my face, and I'm left holding the rabbits. And so I go out in the Jeep with Dad, and I said, Dad, that lady's crazy. She wanted to know how old the rabbits were. And he said, what'd you tell her? I said, a couple of years. He laughed. He said, she wanted to know if they were fresh, not their birth dates. And I tell you that story because anytime we miscommunicate with somebody, everybody loses. My rabbits, they were fresh, they were clean, they were nourishing, and they tasted great with onions. In fact, they were everything one could possibly want in a rabbit. But because that lady and I didn't communicate or speak the same language, we both missed out on an opportunity. She missed out a good feed of rabbits, and I lost $10. You see, she was asking appropriate questions, but because I didn't understand her, not only did I fail to communicate, I made my product distasteful. When she heard those rabbits were 2 years old, all she could imagine they were probably in some deep freeze somewhere for the last 2 years. And they've been thawed out, you know, maybe for the last week or so, and sitting in the back of the Jeep, and they were probably rotten and everything else, and the thought of it repulsed her. And I thought, is it possible that we do something similar with the church? Is it possible there are hungry people who desperately want what we have through the gospel of Jesus Christ? People that are crying from the depths of their heart. They want to know, is your product good for me? Will it make a difference in my life? Is it even true? And maybe rather than answering their questions and addressing the hunger of their spirit, is it possible that through our traditions or religiosity or our inability to relate to the real questions that we make the most precious commodity in the world, the gospel of Jesus Christ, distasteful to a hurting world? I was asked to speak to you tonight about the future of the church and the church of the future. When I was a kid in school, everyone would say, a teacher would say, anyone have a question besides Kevin? I'm full of questions. And I have another one for you. Why even bother? I mean, what difference does it make if the church has a future? But maybe to be fair, we need to define what we need by church. On any given Sunday at my church, at Pathway Community Church, I tell the people there, I say, welcome to Pathway Community Church. We're a perfect church for people who are not. We hate religion, and we love the gospel. And the reason I say that and make that distinction between religion and the gospel is because they are not the one and the same. In fact, I would argue they're opposites of each other. Because religion is about performance for God. Look at me. Look how good I am. Look at all the things that I've done for you, God. I deserve you. Whereas the gospel says, God, I have sinned and I have failed. I am broken. I need you. And I deserve nothing, so I look to you. I look to your cross for the remission of my sins. Religion says you have to do it on your own. The gospel says Christ has done everything for you. I have no interest in giving my life and time to the propagation of religion, but I will gladly lay it down for the gospel. See, the church is not about buildings and monuments and music styles and figureheads and vestments. The church is the body of Christ, regardless of denomination. There are people who have been changed and bought by the sacrifice of Christ on the cross that we call the gospel. And so if that is the church that we're talking about, those who are followers of Christ, who engage the world with love, who are connected to that divine conduit we call God, people who make a difference in the world by serving and loving, then I'm all about that. And I'll double down on that. If that's the entity that we call the church, then yes, indeed, the church has a future. Not only must it survive, it must thrive. So I would argue that the church of the future, first of all, must be gospel-centered. Secondly, it must be motivated by love. But in addition, I would say the church of the future must be distinct from the world and not one with it. People need the church to be able to answer the big questions of life. What does it mean, for example, to find ourselves as guests on this little tiny spinning blue ball in the universe? Is our sense of individual uniqueness backed by a guarantee, or are we just like dust in the wind? How do we make sense of life? How do we answer the big questions like, why am I here? And what happens when I die? And does it even matter how I live? You see, these are faith questions. Queries beyond the scope of the halls of secular academia. Science and math can't answer all the questions of life. And these are the furthest things from our minds when we pause to appreciate a beautiful painting or a soul-inspiring music, or tuck our kids at night, or when we fall in love. Mathematical and scientific proofs have to do with the lower areas of life, while falling in love and coming to faith are higher, more important matters. Not because they're less rational, but because they're more personal. And they engage the whole person rather than the mind alone. The church of the future must be able to answer life's most important questions. If we are not being distinctive from the ideology of a world that leaves God out of it, then what difference does it make if we survive? Who cares if that church has no future? The church of the future must also be biblically functioning. When the church is operating by God's design as intended, it's the most powerful and influential force for good in the world. Because when I think about the church, I don't see an old, decrepit place on its last leg, or empty bank accounts, or peeling paint, but a living, vibrant community that adds value and lifts everything it touches. I envision a church that changes lives, and where communities are enriched, and children are taught values, and the youth are challenged and encouraged, the elderly and the infirmed are cared for, where the poor are ministered to, the hungry are fed, and the disenfranchised can be treated with dignity. In a place like that, teaching would be transformational, and the fellowship would be life-changing, and people would share each other's sorrows and joys, and they would laugh together and cry together, and they would bear each other's burdens and make a difference in each other's lives. This is the place where hurting people should be able to run to. This is the place where hope is found in a hopeless world. When someone has a crisis, this is where they should be able to come and run. When somebody has messed up their life, this is the place where they should be able to come and feel safe to share it. Maybe when somebody has been really stupid with their money, or maybe they had bad investments, or maybe they got involved in the gambling machines and they lost everything. Their house is gone, and their family is gone, and their dignity is gone, and they feel so ashamed they just want to put a gun to their head. Rather than doing that, I would hope that they would know about a place like this, where they can run to, where they know they can be loved. When your life falls apart, whether it's by someone else's fault or your own hand, this should be the place. My place, your place, our church should be the place where people can come and crumble. And that's the future of the church of the future. Remember that dreadful morning 9 years ago on March 12th when the Cougar helicopter crashed and all those people lost their lives? That morning, the families didn't care about the latest oil prices. They didn't reach out to the latest existential philosophy. They didn't call up the local atheist club and ask for guidance. No, they ran to the only place where they knew there was hope. They called out to the church. And here they heard of a God who loves, a faith that lasts, and a life that is eternal. And the church is not perfect. Someone said it was like Noah's Ark. The stench inside would be unbearable if it wasn't for the storm outside. And like anything that man is involved in, there are problems, but still it's the only hope of the world. It's the only commodity, it's the only organism that's going to survive on into eternity. Everything else that you put your hand to, your time, your attention to, everything else is going to go up in smoke someday. The church, because the church is about people, is eternal. It's going to last forever. Our streets, just out here, people are attacking each other with guns and knives. Fathers and mothers are beating and abusing their children. Little babies are being born addicted to cocaine. And just about every night, in this little city, one of our convenience stores are being robbed. See, our nation is drowning in despair and hopelessness. And so if people are headed down a road of pain and sorrow, who or what is going to change the direction of their life and the make of their heart? You think that Justin Trudeau or Dwight Ball is going to pass legislation that's going to have the power to change people's hearts? Do you think some guy in business school is going to come up with an invention that is so unique that people's lives and hearts are going to be changed? Or some professor in university that's going to teach a course that's so transformational that it changes lives for generations to come? No, none of these people can do that, but Jesus can. And how is Jesus preached? How is the Word taught? Where is transformational ideas communicated? Through the local church. Folks, listen, the hope of St. John's, the hope of Newfoundland, the hope of the world is the development and the establishment of biblically functioning communities that we know as the church. And if that is the future of the church, then the church indeed has a future. God bless you.